Welcome to the Truth Has No Sides podcast. These conversations will be had to expand the minds and the consciousness of you, the listener. If you like the content of the show, please like the video and subscribe to our channel to help this message be seen and heard by more people. Thank you for being here and enjoy the episode. Today we've got a great guest, Jeremie Paulus. He and I have had a few discussions. He's a friend of a friend. He's helped a few of the guys I know from soccer. Interesting, huh? How I bring that up in every podcast. He's helped a few of them with their journeys. But he and I have had some discussions offline, and we've kind of cut those discussions short because we want to get them on camera. Both of us are in agreement that I think more individuals are feeling like both of us are feeling right now. So we want to kind of get that raw truth, that raw emotion of how he's feeling, how I'm feeling on camera. So Jeremie Paulus, please let the world know who you are, what you do, and we'll just open this up and start talking.
I am. My name's Jeremie, but I used to go by Paulus. Now I just I don't even care anymore what I go by. But yeah, what do I do? That's interesting. You asked me that for like when we first met, and I'm on kind of like a transition. I used to be a breathwork coach and do meditation and psychedelics with psilocybin and bufo. But now I'm just kind of killing the ego. And I'm in Mexico and with my family, and I'm just living. I'm learning is what I'm doing. I'm like, yeah, that's me. So.
Well, isn't that interesting that we kind of feel like we really start learning after we've spent decades thinking we were learning. When we finally say, I don't give a shit what my name is, I don't want to be a facilitator anymore, I don't want an identity. Like I talk about in the book, I went from the corporate identity to the meditation guy, to the fitness guy, to the teacher, to the now. Like I have no clue. All those identities have seemed hollow. But one of the things you and I have discussed is in the moment of those identities, they matter. Just like Santa Claus matters to an 8-year-old. That's truly, like it's not an insult to us. It matters to win a game, to win at business, to help people with breath work, to be a facilitator, to make someone feel better in their journey. It matters in that moment. And I assume both you and I still want to help others, but there's kind of a letting go of how that comes about.
Yeah, no, that's real. That's right on the dot. Like I was so determined when I started down this path, and this is about 7 years ago because I'm turning 47 in a couple months. But my kind of awakening started. I mean, it's been going on for 10 years, but really, 40 is when it kind of came. And should I go on? Should I tell you like my history a little bit?
I love this format because you can talk and go off tangents all you want. We got an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, however long you want. Keep going.
All right, I'll start from the. Yeah, most people. I mean, your listeners don't know who I am, but I used to be an addict. My biggest addiction was sex, porn, alcohol, weed, and then all the hard drugs in between. And that's all I lived for 22 years. And it finally caught up to me when I was about 40 and about 39. 39. And I was such in a dark place because of that sexual addiction. It was just tearing my soul apart. And I tried to get out of that and everything else, and I just couldn't do it. And in my environment, I always go back. And so my wife and I, our girlfriend at the time, we decided to go on a journey. And so we quit our jobs. I was running a plastic recycling company. She had her own cleaning business, and we gave it all away and got a motorcycle and headed south of the border to Mexico. And that journey lasted 4.5 years. and it took us all around the world. And about a year and a half into it, our relationships really just fallen apart because we're a little bit soberer than we were, and but we were living in a codependent relationship. But we ended up in Barcelona, Spain, and that's when everything changed for me. We got a big fight, and my girlfriend, my wife, she heads over to Morocco, and on her way back, she gets deported, and that it was the first time that I was by myself in 8 years in our relationship, alone in Barcelona, Spain, and that was the best thing for me. That was the best thing. I just was so afraid to be alone, and I knew she probably wasn't going to come back. And I hated myself. I hated myself for what I'd become, this slave to my senses. And I was really thinking about killing myself. And I've been there before. And but then there was that little voice, I'm trying to think. It's like a combination of my ego, because it didn't want me to die, and also my soul. I think it's probably one of the first times they actually got along, in a sense. But I just I was like, I'm going to try this one more time, and I did. I went sober for 2 weeks. I was in a 2 week sober spot, and I've done this before. And if you're an addict, you've gone through this multiple times. This cycle, if something happens and you try, and I met my guardian angel. I was at an acro yoga class in a park, and this stranger comes up to me and says, "Do you meditate?" And that's been one of my trigger words for forever. I've never been able to figure it out, but it's been in my radar at this time. Like I've been, like I knew I had to learn how to meditate, and so I took a couple of courses online, and it's never. I couldn't do it. I'm an addict. Like there's ADHD addict. Like there's no way I just didn't get it. It's Chinese to me, and so I always put it on the side. So this guy comes up to me. He looks like a homeless man. He goes, "Do you meditate?" And I was like, "Oh, no, fuck off." And everybody else in the group kind of grabbed their stuff, because there's a lot of petty theft in Barcelona, and so they're grabbing their stuff, and he mentions Wim Hof, and I don't know if you guys know about Wim Hof, the Iceman. He's really the guy that's kind of made breathwork cool. And interestingly enough, I started watching some of his videos about not breath, but I watched a 20-minute video of him like a week before this incident. And it was just about all the cool things he's done. And he mentions that Wim Hof taught him. And I called him out on it. I was like, bullshit. And he's like, give me 5 minutes. I'm going to teach you this breath work. I've never heard of this. I've never heard of breath work. I've never heard of nothing like this. And so I was like, okay, I'm the only person in this group of 8 people that was doing this breath thing, and nothing happened. I did like 60 breaths. I'm still like, what am I supposed to do here? And anyways, somebody asked me a question. I turned around. I to talk to this person for 30 seconds. I turned around. The guy was gone, and no one saw him leave. I don't know his name. I barely remember what he looks like. But on my way home, my intuition really got to me. It says, this happened for a reason. And so I went home, and I'm the kind of guy that likes to I always take it a little further. And so I was like, I'm going to quadruple everything. I'm going to do 240 counts for 3 different rounds. And I had my first, like, I would say, spiritual experience in my living room by myself in Spain. And that changed everything for me. That I got this. I was just sobbing. And I started remembering my childhood trauma, and up the first right off the bat. And that was the cause of all my pain and addiction, is 20 something years earlier, having these things happen to me. And I hadn't, like, I used sex and drugs to basically help me cope with with the things that happened to me. And so that has started my journey. And long story short, so I don't know, is this too much? You good?
No, like I said, we're only 10 minutes in, man. Most of these are the minimum an hour. Some of them are 2 hours. So they're the long story short does not exist in this realm. So
Yeah.
please continue on, because I can promise you there are so many things in these stories that individuals are sharing a lot of times on this podcast for the first time. I hear a lot of people say, you know, the suicide of my father was the precipice of my journey, and for some odd reason they don't talk about it until they're on here. I don't know why they feel comfortable on here, but I very much appreciate that. So long story short, no, long story longer. So please continue.
Yeah. Rock and roll. So yeah, I started doing this twice a day, morning and night. For the whole thing's about 30 minutes, and I just kept on calming my nervous system down, and I kept getting this clarity. Some people call them downloads. Makes you feel more special. Um, but yeah, I kept getting these ideas, and this calm, and I just started to write in a journal. Like that was never something that I used to do, and I started getting ideas of what I needed to do to get over my addictions. And for example, like the second time I did this, I literally, like, this knowing of, you need to take care of your sleep. Like, forget about your addictions, forget about everything else, focus on your sleep. And all these different things, the messages and stuff started coming in. And in a matter of 5 weeks, I had insomnia for 20 years because I was an addict. And in a matter of 5 weeks, I had figured that out. And I started taking care of my body and just reading stuff and listening to things. And in 5 weeks, I had figured out my sleep, and that was the most important thing. Like, my body finally healed. I was able to, overnight, 50% of my willpower came back from just sleeping. And then I just started focusing on my nutrition, and that was a huge thing. And then exercise, and so in 4 months, when my wife got back, I was a different person. I wasn't like sober by any means or anything like that, but I was my mindset. And when she came back, she was just like, "Who is this person?" Um, and that was the beginning. And I my wife and I'm glad we'll talk about that in a second, but she watched my progress slowly, but I finally got her to try the breath work, and she started doing it, months later. And then she started to heal from it and doing it. And so anyway, we stayed in Barcelona for, a year, and then we head up to Eastern Europe. And then we went to China for a little bit, and then ended up in Bali, Indonesia. And by that time, we were about a year and a half, 2 years sober. And like Bali's, I don't know, have you been to Bali? Um, it's a really beautiful place, and it's a very spiritual place. Like, you can feel it. There's like this energy to it, and there's a lot of yoga, and there's a lot of healing stuff there, tons. But that was really where I started to realize, like, oh, I'm not an addict anymore. Okay, where do I go? And then I was just like, I want to become a breathwork guy, because I want to teach people this, because it's helped me. I was on this journey, and I had this breathwork session, and I kind of saw myself doing this. So um, I I found a mentor there, and he was doing ice baths and breathwork, and kind of took me under his wing and kind of studied under him for about 7 months. And then COVID hit, and right before COVID, we just had a feeling to come home, and we didn't know. And it was like literally like 4 weeks later, then they closed everything down. Um, and so we made it back to Utah, and that's where I was just like, I'm going to change the world with breath work, and that was my goal. And um, and I created a really cool community, really cool. And at the same time, it was I finally, by the time I was done, about 4.5 years later, 5 years of doing that, I was got really just I got distracted with it, and discouraged with it because I wasn't helping as many people. It was like I think my ego had a big part of that, a really big part of that. I needed that recognition. I needed a lot of things. I this needy thing. That's the lesson I learned from that, and that really destroyed a lot of the the, the power of what I was trying to create because I was needing so much. Needed validation as well, and I was just trying to save the world. And I got pissed off because people just couldn't do. I tried everything. I'm like, you just got to do this every day. Like, just like it was just like, fine, fuck it. People just don't want to do this. It's so hard. Like, only a few people that came in actually took it serious. And they just want to come once a week to join the community, which was cool. But that's not really what I want. Like that. That I wanted people to do it because you have to do it. And but yeah, so there's my story for right now.
No, we'll expand on it. I'm with you. That's after I left my first business, I had a savior complex, I would assume, because I went from business to the nonprofit world, and I traveled the world for the Pay It Forward movement. That book and that movie, and I felt the same way. I would travel around, and it was such a simple act: do something kind for someone, and have them do it for someone else. Simple. More people than not had an issue with it. They had a hard time with it. They'd have questions like, well, what if I don't like that person? I come from, I'd go to schools in a rough neighborhood, and they'd say, if I did a kind act for someone, I might get shot. There was an ungodly amount of excuses as to why people couldn't do kind acts. So I spent many years just saying, well, grab a coffee for someone, hold the door open, smile, simple stuff. And then it became a point, probably around the same time as you, 4 or 5 years, where I was just like, I can't believe how something so simple is so hard. And I can't do it anymore. And I think I called the lady up, Catherine Ryan Hyde, the author of the book, and just said, I'm done. And she said, do you want to stay on the board? And I was like, no, I just have to take a full break here. It was difficult. There was times with the people we were dealing with, the board we created, the back and forths, the backstabbing. I understood the nonprofit world is worse than the profit world, because for the for-profit, they're looking for for-profit. What their number one goal is. In the nonprofit world, people sit behind the kindness, the identity of nonprofit to get what they want in a very sometimes malicious, manipulative way. And that's what I really loved about Pay It Forward, is money wasn't involved. It was just simple, kind acts. You could do all 8 billion people could be involved very quickly. And just like you, I wanted more people to recognize the movement through my efforts. And we got tens of millions of people involved. And that was another identity that I had to shed. I don't talk about it anymore unless someone brings it up. Even if someone does have a Pay It Forward bracelet on, or someone talks about Pay It Forward, or the movie comes on, or it comes up in passing, I'll talk about it with them, but I won't talk about my past with it. Just like I very rarely talk about my business past. Just like I'm starting to really rarely talk about my teachings or teaching or helping people with meditation. Because when you said that guardian angel of yours said, do you meditate? I started laughing internally, because if I had a nickel for every time I asked that question to someone, and I assume, like you, probably half of them wanted to say, fuck off. But I was so ingrained in that identity, I didn't care. And part of me misses that ignorance of not really caring what people think, and being so laser focused on helping that it didn't matter if someone didn't like it, told me to fuck off, or thought I was annoying, because I just wanted to help. As you go down this path and you clear things up a little bit more, you
even laser focused, you can't really be laser focused anymore because you're expanding your universe. So you get to see the people who you want to help, but the ability to ignore the people who want to tell you to go away. You can't ignore that anymore. And just being human, when you find out more people than you imagined or thought don't want to talk about this, don't want your help, and are actually quite annoyed that you're trying to help them, it gets kind of exhausting. You don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I'm with you. That's why I was so excited about this podcast, because when we first had that discussion and your daughter was on your shoulders ripping your nose apart with a clothes hanger, which there was blood drawn on that. I could what you were talking about and your frustrations that naturally came out are the same with me. And that is the part of the awakening process in this path that once the newness wears off, once the new knowledge that you feel you're learning that's going to save your life wears off, you get all of it. Awakening is all of it. It's not just the good. You're not just removing the bad and it all just floods in with good. Everything floods in. And it becomes a difficult part, but that is also part of the process of letting that go. Because after that, you kind of feel yourself slowly coming out of it to kind of a neutral state. But it's still, you're in this dense world with a body. And if I say Jeremie, you're still going to turn around and say what? And if someone yells Charlie, I'm going to, the ego does not, we always talk about ego death. People think we're going to really destroy that ego that worries about stuff. You're not. You're not going to. You'll become less attached to it, but you're not ever going to completely get rid of it. And that ego is the most tricky, most manipulative, most exhausting, will never give up. It's still going to say, hey, you remember that one time you were really driven to help people with breathwork? You should go back to that. Because if you're miserable now, remember how much happiness that gave you? It's always thinking in those terms. Let's get more people to the gym. You should do more coaching. You should do more teaching. Hopefully this podcast takes off to millions of people. If it doesn't, it's a failure. I'm with you. I'm with you. Like right
on. Yeah.
Sometimes I do this podcast and I see like a couple hundred views. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Why is there's these complete idiots out there that are getting millions of views. Like, what am I doing wrong? What am I? But you pointed out exactly that need, that want to, the ego part of it, like you said, kind of sabotages it. And the toughest part about it is knowing that and still doing it. we're not ignorant anymore to what's holding us back. We're fully aware of it and we still do it. Mm-hmm. That is the most frustrating. Being ignorant and having an excuse that the universe is against us or someone screwed us over or the world isn't going to help me. That's one thing. You can just, anger is a great thing to push against and not be upset. Anger comes from fear. So when the fear kicks in, you can't be angry anymore because you know it's your fault. That's a very lonely place to be with very few people to talk to. But that's what I love about getting you and I having this discussion, because like I said before, I think more people than not are having these type of thoughts and they don't know who to talk to. So I appreciate you sharing. So continue.
Okay, so yeah. So breath work, the stuff what I was doing with it. Okay, so hearing your story about your the kind of meditations you do, like I could never do that as an addict and ADHD, all this stuff. Like there's no way. But the breath work is like I always said this in my workshops. My breath work is meditation for dummies, because when you get done with it, you will be in a meditative state. And that's what's so cool about breath work. And especially for somebody that's an addict, like it actually, you feel things. And so you're kind of getting higher. There's different neurotransmitters but you close that thinking part of your brain. And that's what meditation is you know, for, at least for me, like the way it's like you turn off that thinking part of your brain, the neocortex that's logical and thinking, like that turns off. And I think breath work is the fastest way as a newbie to get there. And where you're actually doing something, you're actually breathing instead of just sitting. That's really hard for somebody that's, especially this day and age, for anybody. I think it's really hard to start in just 20 minutes, like, you know, in your book, you're like, when you first discussed it, I'm like, yeah, that's freaking hard shit. I tried to do that, I could never do it, you know? Um, so for me, that's why it really just for me, it's what did it. And I was doing it twice a day for, I don't know, about a year. And like I said, I literally, after really studying it, when I got to Bali, I want to know more, because I'm like, how did I heal myself? How did I bring awareness to the parts of my childhood that I need to be fixed to be able to, you know, work all this stuff out? And so I did a lot of research, and so I learned a lot about the mind, the nervous system, and literally on a physical level of the body, you know, you with breath work, meditation, you're calming the nervous system down, and eventually that becomes your baseline. And that's what I realized. Like literally, that's what I've been trying to teach for, you know, the last years, is that it's everything's repetition. And when your body starts to feel a certain way, when you know that, oh, like everybody, that like majority of people that does the breath work or meditation, you're gonna feel this calmness. And the number one thing I get from anybody, like, you know, some people have all this like crazy experiences, and other people are like, I wasn't thinking about anything. I'm like, yes, like that's it. Like, you weren't thinking about anything just for 15 minutes. You weren't thinking about anything. How cool. Um, but I think that is training the nervous system to be calm, because our world is designed for us to trigger that nervous system. And when our nervous system is whacked, our body can't function, our hormones are whacked, our immune system's whacked. And I think it's designed that way. It's designed for us to be in this state of fight, flight, or freeze. And it's our responsibility to understand that there is these forces out there, that makes our body um, fight, flight, or freeze. And when you do that, you don't have control. And when you're in that state, you're in fear, you're in doubt, you're in these lower frequencies. And so meditation breath work is a way of feeling uh, feeling what that should be, the baseline of that calmness that we should be there. That should be it. And so, anyways, you do this long enough, and you know this. You do this long enough, so you know what it feels like. And you know, I used to do like 4 rounds in when I teach 4 rounds of breath work, and you know, it doesn't. Eventually, you don't need 4 rounds. It's just a matter of, you know, a few minutes of calmness, and then you get back in that feeling. You know what that feeling feels like, and you take that the rest of your day, and then you have all these experiences during the day that you get triggered, and you get to practice going back to that sense of calm. I don't know if that made any sense or not. But.
No, that makes great sense. And you know, one of the things I've noticed with spiritual people is their loss of confidence. I do the same thing. Like, I'll say something very clear, like you just did, very confidently, and I always end it with, I don't know if that made sense to you. Like, I don't know if I was clear. I mean, you know, my brain's not clear. Like, isn't that incredible? When we were ignorant, we had incredible amounts of confidence. When we become knowledgeable, we lose that confidence. Like my greatest messenger is my girlfriend, my fiance. And she is one of the most clear. When she gets in that zone unknowingly, the messages she says for me, for others, a lot of times people don't want to hear it because it's the truth. She always ends it with, my brain's not functioning, I'm not awake, or I don't know if that was clear. And I have to continuously remind her that is just spot on. But because of her upbringing, how she was raised, who she was around, and how those people treated her, she's doubted herself her whole life. And it is so hard to let that go, because as adults, it's one thing. When you're a kid and you don't know better, and the people who are supposed to love you, who are your gods, who are your support system, are continuously making you doubt, are continuously hammering things into you that they shouldn't, man, it fucks you up as an adult. My upbringing, your upbringing, everyone's upbringing, our parents are really trying to do the best they can. We're trying to do the best we can. But back to her, she says things to me that make me want to walk into oncoming traffic, because it's so raw, so real, and so truthful. And as soon as I let go of the anger, it's like, oh God, how could someone be so right? How could I be so blind? How could I not know myself like this individual next to me know? How is that possible? She's not in my head. She didn't live my life. How does she know exactly what needs to be said in the moment? And that's one thing I really like to remind people of, is like Marcus, my buddy that you helped. When he talks about his journey, he just has the weight of the world come off his shoulders. He told me about that a couple nights at futsal last year, and he could not stop talking about how good he felt. The weight of the world. I mean, he just loved it, and that was his experience. Some people will get that through breath work, through a really clear meditation. People see tons of people see angels. You saw a guardian angel. All of a sudden, he was there. He was not. Like, people have all of those stories. A lot of people don't like to share them because they think it's crazy, or they'll get kicked out of their church, or people, whatever. For me, I've taken psychedelics. They haven't done a thing. They didn't do a single thing for me. I would take mushrooms, hoping for what Marcus had experienced, probably what most people had experienced, the colors, visions. Someone talked to me. I realized it was a typical Tuesday. I started having a conversation. I was like, my God, I don't need shrooms. This is how I talk normal. This is how I act normal. I did Bufo. I did that really powerful, like, complete ego death, gone for 20 minutes. I can't tell you what I experienced. Nothing. So what I'm saying is, my messages that I ask for, that I've been on my knees in tears in my basement begging the universe to give me, I was always expecting them to come from that type of experience. What others had experienced, what others had gone through, what I've read about, what teachers had talked about. It finally clicked. I don't know how long ago, but it was recent, that my messages came through a 5'6" blonde woman that I love, and that I would get very upset with when she would tell me stuff like that, because my ego wouldn't allow it. I didn't want to hear it, and I didn't want to admit that. I didn't want to admit the anger I had in me. I didn't want to admit my past. I didn't want to admit how bad I'd been to people. I didn't want to admit how much I needed to be a better man for her. But my messages come through her. But to the point is that she would always give me these messages so clear, and then she'd kind of walk off like, it doesn't matter. You're not going to listen anyways, or it wasn't clear. I'm not making sense. No. When she starts talking to me about that stuff, it is articulate, it is simple, it's clear, and it's so to the point. She doesn't say she doesn't hesitate, she doesn't pause. It's so clear. So for anyone listening, your messages that you're asking for, don't expect them to come in a certain way. They're coming. Just be open to them coming in a way you don't expect, or maybe a way you don't want them to. If you want to see an angel on a wall, or you want to go have an ayahuasca experience and think that God's going to talk to you directly, that may not be the case. It may be your wife, it may be your husband, it may be one of your kids, it may be a complete stranger who says something to you that is so direct and raw that that's it. That's the point, that you're just like, oh, as soon as I let this go and admit that they're right, that changes everything.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think expectations really kill everything when we have expectations of anything, and especially you're right on with psychedelics. There's so many documentaries, and there's so many things about people having these grand life-changing things, and then you have these expectations, and then you're expecting, and then it's those people that have those expectations that never get anything out of it. And I love psychedelics. Have been a huge part of my life. I found them when I was 19. It was the first drug I did, and I was really naive about it. Um, but that started changing everything, uh, especially with my undoing my religion. And I think psychedelics for me, it just brings that awareness, just like the breath work, just like anything else, if you're aware to it. If you're not, then it's not really going to happen. Anything's going to happen for you. But you really start with, I think from this, psilocybin bufo, if you allow yourself time to to think, to process, to integrate, they're great tools for many people to start bringing awareness to your ego, to bring awareness to the pain, to the suffering, and then you still have to do something about it in this reality. And I think that's one of the biggest pitfalls. I think when it comes to psychedelics, we want to be healed. We want most people want to go in there and they have an issue, they want to come out of there, and the issue gone. And it's not how it works. It's not. It's not how it works. It's going to show you in a certain way so you understand it in your brain of what you need to do to forgive. I think that's one of the biggest, greatest lessons I've ever had in my entire life was an ayahuasca experience where I thought I had forgiven my mother, and I thought I did. And it showed me that I didn't, and I didn't respect her, and I paid for it. Every time I had a thought, I would just puke and shit. I did this for like 2 hours straight, and it just literally was clearing my mind of all the negative things that were still in my subconscious that I really hated. I hated my mom for a long time, and it was deep in my subconscious. On my conscious part of it, I was like, "Oh, I forgave her. Everything's cool." And then it just kind of showed me. It was like, no. So I paid for it. Paid for it, and then that lesson just kept like I came out of there like, "Oh my god!" And then I'd go to her and still be able to communicate and love her for and recognizing what she had done for me. Like I'm not going to get into it in this, but she was part of my trauma, and really forgiveness was. I have to say that in my lifetime so far is that's been the greatest lesson in my life is forgiveness, and unconditional love, and that's part of that. You take those lessons and then you got to apply it into this world because it's really nice when you're all high to be all lovey-dovey, rainbows and unicorns, but you got to bring it back into the 3D world and practice. Okay, when somebody does something wrong or says something, I understand. Okay, cool. I'm not going to react to that. I love you. Okay, cool. And so I think that is, I think, the magic of psychedelics, but there is a misconception of what people are, the expectation that they have. But it takes you to the same place as your mind, as like meditation of brain awareness. And I just, yeah, yeah. Anyways, what's your thoughts on that?
No, and if you see me with this, I like to give myself a little message because when you talk, I have questions that come up and I don't want to miss them. So I just put a note down about 10-day, meaning, a lot of people talk about 10-day silent retreats. The only day I care about is day 11. So many people can feel good in a meditation. So many people can feel good at a psychedelic with ayahuasca or within a small community for 5 days doing a medicine journey. A lot of people can feel good in a community. But for some reason, we continuously forget. We were in a pretty good spot before we came here. Because if you listen to near-death experience people, you listen to Darius Wright talking about out-of-body experiences, seems like everything we're searching for in the physical realm we had, and we got bored and came here to get our teeth kicked in.
Yeah.
So spirituality, and I think this is what you and I are experiencing, and many more are as they get aggressive on the spiritual path, is spirituality is no different than letting go of the business or the other identities. It's just another distraction. And as soon as you realize that spirituality is not the end game, as so many people think it is, that's where you realize you just you have to sink back into life and be human and pay bills. And even as I say that, I get a sick feeling in my stomach, because there's quite a few times I don't want to have to eat continuously all day. I don't want to have to go to the bathroom. I don't want to have to figure out a way to pay bills. I know we're supposed to think life is beautiful, but I think it's beautiful and it's completely chaotic. It really is. So there's a lot of people that get addicted. I think spirituality becomes a new addiction, including myself, because we're meditating. I was meditating hours upon hours upon hours upon hours upon hours, thinking that it was going to take all of my problems away. All of the ceremonies, all of the retreats. You'd feel so good in that time, and then you'd get back to real life and you'd be like, shit. Right? And I think, we do this so much. Reincarnation, we've done this dozens of times, hundreds of times, thousands of times. Even one teacher said you got to do it 1,000,000 times before you get a human body. They're all just theories, whatever. But you can spend multiple lifetimes as a Catholic, multiple lifetimes as an atheist, multiple lifetimes as a spiritual being. What's happening now, and I'm only talking from direct experience, but also from so many teachers, so many astrologists, so many guys who talk about the universe, who talk about consciousness. They're talking about how everything's speeding up and that this is a very rare moment in humanity. So the karma, the suppression, the past lives, the things that are coming up very aggressively, because they have to come up to be let go. If you don't know they're there, you're not going to want to fix them. You're not going to want to let them go. You're not going to have to process through them. So much is coming up. And there's so many people, including myself, that are having a very hard time dealing with it, because it's not taking a couple lifetimes to let go of a simple thing. You're being asked to let go of it within weeks or months or a small period of your life, a couple years. And we think that we've gone through something for 2 years and we should process it. But if you really understand how the universe works, how time is, how consciousness, sometimes the things you've let go or processed through have taken dozens of lifetimes. You're now being asked, I don't know why. I don't know why a 14-year-old turns 15. That's just how it is. But you're being asked to let go of what your mom did to you. You're being asked to let go, me personally, of my fears, my insecurities, my worries, my doubts very quickly. And it's taxing. And it's terrifying. And it's nerve-wracking. And back to what you've talked about multiple times in this session about the nervous system. Learning from my teacher, the meditation I did, and the number one thing he talked about, like I talk about in the book, is the purification of the nervous system. My meditation so aggressively was because of ego, and I thought I was going to have one up on someone, and I was going to learn something, and I was going to let all my problems go. It had nothing to do with that. It had to do with 5 to 6 years of strengthening and purifying my nervous system so that in this current time, I didn't die. Truly. There are so many days I wake up and the anxiety and the fear and the worry that collapses on me as soon as I become conscious is just like, I got to take a deep breath even thinking about it. And that has happened for years now. And I finally understood that what I thought I was doing was not why I was doing it. And that's usually the reason, right? We find out down the road why the universe had us meditate or do breath work or become an addict or have to get rid of the addiction or go through what we're going through. if I didn't have that meditation, there's no way this physical body could handle how much is going on inside me right now, the chaos that's going on inside me, the fears, the worries, the insecurities. And spirituality was a great tool, but just like a hammer to build a home, you don't keep the hammer once the house is built. You don't need the hammer anymore. And a lot of us are dragging spirituality behind us like we dragged other identities, like we dragged the business, the need for approval, the need for people pleasing, the fears, the word. We're just dragging spirituality behind us, thinking that if we did ayahuasca 20 times over the next couple of years, that it's going to work. I mean, I know someone who did ayahuasca over 100 times.
Yeah.
And nothing really changed. Yeah,
there's a big healing thing going on right now, and everybody wants they're on this healing train, this path, and it takes years and years, and they just go get high, they go in ceremonies, and it's great. And at the end of the day, it's like healing shouldn't take 5 years, shouldn't take 10. I mean, I hate saying that because somebody's going to get mad at me for saying that, but like it shouldn't take that long. But we want the pill. That's what we've been sold in our society. We want a pill to fix everything, and that'd be ripping us off as a spiritual being. Like if we just could, okay, don't worry about it. You're all good now, no problems. We have to go through that. But I know exactly. I know people just like that in the community I used to be part of. Just this every month. It's time to do it's retreat. It's time to do this, and it's this thing, and they have these great realizations, and then they go back, and a week and a half later, boom, they go right back to their old habits and their old identity and their old self. And yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, that's an exhausting thing. Again, to be well aware of my patterns and to still, like, kind of like when you lock your keys in your car, and as you're shutting the door, you lock the keys in the car, you know what's about to happen, but you still do it. Like there's times I'll be talking to someone or things, and in the moment, it's so quick now. I know what I'm doing or saying is going to end up in a bad position for me, but it's so difficult to stop. And it's nothing major. It's small stuff. It's how I talk to someone. It's how I reacted to something. It's an argument or a decision I made. But it's no longer taking days or weeks to look back at that and say, shit, I shouldn't have done that. It's within minutes, or it's almost immediate. That's that shortening of time where we needed a whole lifetime to get over a fear. Now it's like quick. And that's what they're talking about, the speeding up process. That's the letting go of karma, letting go of all that stuff. It's almost immediate. I hear my voice saying something and I'm like, don't say that. You know where this will end. And it's like, no. I'm right. I'm going to tell her I'm right. No, man. Shut the fuck up. It's not worth it. And I still do it. And then I feel immediately in my stomach, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Here we go. This is going to lead this. I'm going to lose an hour of my life or half a day of my life, or I'm going to worry about this. It's immediate. And I think
is that a good thing?
I don't think it's good or bad. I think when it comes to the questions of good or bad or what people should or should not do, when we really get to the core of something, people will say, well, this is why this happens. Well, this is a good thing. I always ask them to go one step further. Meaning, and this, why does a 15-year-old turn 16? Apparently, after 365 days, you age. And I know that seems like a very generic answer. It seems very like this universe, how we evolve, why we go through this process. If you go deep enough, that question sums up everything. So is this quickening process good for humanity?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know other than it is. It's happening right now. So it's good that it's letting things releasing quicker, but as many, like you talked about, how many people are having an opinion now? How many people think that these 3 words are going to manifest anything? This is how you should take ayahuasca. Don't do psychedelics. We're finding out that it's bad for you. No, it's really good for you. No, Now, like everyone talked about meditation for a decade. Now the videos coming up are why meditation's bad for you. Like people are just being contrarian just so they can get more views and so they can feel like they know something. No, you don't know shit. I don't know shit. I've taken my ego and my confidence in this really small realm and expanded it to this. I can't know anything. I knew that the wall behind me is black, but now I've expanded past the city, the state, the country, the universe. How can I know anything that, like, no, we don't. And so many intelligent people are continuously telling us how we should live, what the 10 rules for life are, this, and this. And that's where I've kind of lost my confidence in a sense, or my direction, because when I was ignorant to it, I would tell everyone, this is the form of meditation you should do. And if you don't do it, you're wasting your time. You're doing guided meditation, complete waste of time. And then 5 years later, I'm watching myself in my bed, so exhausted from my own mental anguish that I'm doing guided meditations just to escape. And some people can't do transcendental meditation, so they do guided, and vice versa. So it's this unique thing of, I had so much confidence in helping people and telling them what to do and feeling confident in the advice I was giving them, to, I don't know what you should do. I don't know you. I didn't live the last 100 years of your life. I don't know how you were raised. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you've nailed that one right on, man. That's, yeah. Don't know shit.
And that's the thing is, it's all part of the process, because we do need the people who are confident in the direction, because at that point, I needed that confidence from my teacher. Right? You needed the confidence from that guy that taught you Wim Hof meditation. Like, these are all just tools that we use in a moment, and then they've got to be let go like everything else. They don't have to be, but again, why does a 14-year-old turn 15? That's just this natural process, this natural progress of apparently how we age, how we evolve, how we move forward, how we let shit go. And sometimes I just want to go to a different planet where it's easier.
I hear you. Yeah, this is so resonates. Everything you just said is great. Like, admitting that you don't know shit really is fucking hard. It really, pardon my French, but it really is hard to just let go and say, I don't know anything. And then let go of our past identities. Because when you strip away everything that you know, it kind of leaves a void a little bit. I know that's kind of where I'm at right now, kind of saying F everything, and I don't know anything, but I do know a few things. I know that I want to live with integrity, and that's what I'm doing. And right now, my identity is a father and a husband, and that's enough for the moment. And I'm taking time to breathe and process this, like what I'm going through, like what you're talking about. And it's it's one of the hardest things. It's I keep saying that, though. I keep leveling up. It's like a game. Like before I was like, God, if I can get past this addiction, this porn and sex addiction, and this is the hardest thing in my entire life. And then it was like creating a business and getting that. This is the hardest thing. Like, I keep doing these hard things in my life, and something else pops up, and it never stops. It's like I swear to God, it just keeps on leveling up with new ideas and new understandings. And but
I guess that's what we're here for, that experience.
I think so.
No, go ahead, please.
No, I say, mentioning experiences, I really truly believe in my core that we're here to experience. And it's you're saying it's not this good or bad, it's this duality thing that we were taught. And it's just lessons. They're just experiences. I've done some horrible things in my life. Horrible. Horrible. I've lost really good friends. I've used and manipulated people. In this last year and a half especially, I've just been able to sit with myself and process like these old memories that women I used to use, and the like, and I'm just like, that was me. I have to, I can feel that, and I think there's a process with that of, and not reacting like I used to, just sitting with that pain of like, wow, I really hurt people. Like I really, like that was me, and sitting with that without going and drinking or going out distracting myself with the phone, and just being able to sit with that. And that's just a new, in this last year and a half, that's like what I've really been processing with my old thoughts, my old memories. And and there's something about, I feel like I'm letting that go by feeling it and just observing that, just being like, yep, I did that. Damn, I can't believe I did that, but I did do that. That was me. And acknowledging it, and being like, now I know. Now I can feel that sober, and really understand like the pain that I caused somebody else by the actions or the things I've said. And there's something liberating about that. At least that was. Have you experienced something like that? Like what I just mentioned?
Oh, still. This podcast is a distraction. Truly. Writing the book was a distraction. Coaching, lifting, like, and I don't say that it's a bad thing. It comes back to the experiences, because this all ties in. So this is great that we're talking about this, because I thought enlightenment was the end all be all. I would have put my life on the line. Actually, I think I said that many times to my ex-wife, to friends, to family who thought I was really extreme with this. And I said, I want truth, and I will give anything for it. Because I was only thinking of this physical realm. I was starting to learn the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, the Quran, what my teacher was telling me, reincarnation, people who can levitate, the powers, the universe, the infinite. You start learning things, and you're like, okay, so in this physical realm, letting go of all of this stuff is where we need to go. Because like you talked about the ego, there's always something it wants. So it's this constant duality of, yes, we want to become less attached, but we're going to become less attached. But there is something in us until we drop this body that's going to want something else to experience. So I'm thinking to myself, enlightenment, getting past the mind, being enlightened, being awakened, letting things go. And then I keep something that I shied away from because my teacher was so hell-bent on clarity and meditation and nothing else. And I was okay with that. But I finally realized that that's no different than Jesus and Catholicism and nothing else. And Buddhism and the self, and not like, I fell for thinking that what he was helping me with, which was a necessity at the time, was it. But that's what a Catholic thinks. That's what an atheist thinks. That's what an Hindu thinks. That's what a Muslim thinks. That's what a Mormon thinks. Everyone thinks their way is the only way. And that if you don't just stay in that realm, you've ruined the teaching. So I started paying attention to near-death experience. For some reason, near-death experiences kept popping up. Out-of-body experiences kept popping up. And they all said the same thing. All had the same experience. And then I started looking at statistics. They're in every religion. Atheists, how many people have gone from being atheists to changing their beliefs because they had an out-of-body experience? Neurologists who think the brain create consciousness, and then they have an out-of-body experience and realize that consciousness is still there when the brain's dead, or brain dead on the scanning. I started paying attention to that, and I was like, so they feel more at home when they drop the body. Like Darius Wright says, it's more physical than you and I right now. Like, we think this is the physical part and then everything else is spiritual and just ether. But the people who have out-of-body experiences and really understand, that's more physical than this. Okay. All right. They feel at home. They feel bliss. They feel peace. They feel love. They don't want to leave. I was like, son of a bitch. So we had that, which we think we need in this physical body, which we think enlightenment's going to give us, which we think bliss is going to give us, which meditation, letting it go of everything, all these, Hindu teachings, letting go, Buddha. As soon as we let that go, we're going to feel that. But we had it in wherever we were before we had this physical body. And we had to forget that to remember who we are. Why? Why did we have to do it? So I'm thinking about all these things, of all these reasons why. This is why we're doing this. This is why the physics. And I'm thinking, no, no, it's just experience. Big pause right there, because there's nothing else to say. It's not about Jesus or Buddha or Hindus or atheism or Catholicism or meditation. That is all part of the experience. So on the spiritual path, thinking that's the end all be all, it is nothing more than another experience. Psychedelics will give you they will break open your consciousness. They'll break open or maybe let something go, but it's just another experience. Because apparently my teacher, Ramaji, the people I've worked with, energy, like they say that if 0 to 1,000 is the level of consciousness, I'm at 1,000, but I still feel this way. I thought I was supposed to feel complete bliss and happiness. It's just another experience. There's no end all. There's okay. So if it's infinite, there was this great guy that I had on the podcast. He came to Utah to talk to a group of us, and someone asked him about an infinite universe, and they were thinking in relative terms of the mind. So they were waiting for an end and a beginning. He's like, if it's infinite, tell me where the end and the beginning is. Okay, so enlightenment's the end. Again, we had what we want in the physical realm of enlightenment before we had that. And all I can say is we got bored to come here to know what we're not, to have limitations, to have an experience that we can't have up there. But once we drop this body, we go back there, and then we come right the hell back here again to do this shit that you and I are saying that we want to go to another planet, or we don't want to wake up tomorrow. So the only thing I can come back to in the simplest form is, it's not about a certain teaching. It's not about an end. It's just about experience. And as soon as we really fall into that, and which I'm having a hard time doing, but I'm getting better at it, that's where the ease comes in. Oh, we have an experience of having struggles. Oh, we're experiencing good. Oh, we experienced addiction. Oh, we experienced getting over the addiction. Oh, we experienced making a bad decision coaching the 11-year-old yesterday. And still thinking about it, wondering, why the hell did I have that certain kid take that PK? And then having the coach, who is a much better coach than me, who I just filled in for, saying, why did you choose that? And it bothers me so much that I'm talking about it on a podcast with a guy I just barely met. Oh, so apparently it's just another experience. It's another experience to find out how much anger I have in me after 30-something years of being a people pleaser and ignoring that anger and not really expressing that. The bad things I did to women, to friends, to family. That's all I can come back to after everything I've known, everything I've read, being a person who wants to see it all, learn it all, and has never shied away from someone telling me something different. Or Truth Has No Sides, the podcast, the book. There's nothing in me that can be a Republican or a Democrat. There's nothing in me that can be a Catholic or an atheist. There's nothing in me that can pick a side. So there's nothing that someone can tell me that that I'm really skeptical about, because it all starts in the mind. So if someone tells me they see something, I'm like, I'm sure they do. They went to a different dimension. They see angels. They saw a monster. The stuff on TV, the sci-fi movies, aliens, everything else. It still blows me away that very intelligent people on 60 Minutes doubt that they're like, oh, maybe we're still alone. Really? Okay. But it always comes back to experience. That's all I got. That it's about this experience. It's about experiencing a podcast with you right now. End of story. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I totally 100% agree with you, man. And, just to add to that, the presence of every day. The more intention, the more presence we put into our lives, the better, at least in that's what I'm working on right now myself, is the presence of being in the moment for that experience, whatever it is, and not to judge it. And I know that that's one of my huge lessons of last year is, and I'm still going through it. Like, it's not like this end thing. Like, there's always like judging experiences, judging people, judging. And I've judged a lot in my day, and have biases and, but anyways, I don't know where that came up, but, yeah, no, thank you.
No, thank you for the time and letting this discussion just be open.
Can I add something else?
Oh, please.
This might be relevant to somebody watching this, but with my experience of where I'm at right now, and I feel you mentioned infinity. I bring that a lot, so, like in my mind of a good analogy, like our minds can't really comprehend infinity because we're mortal, and we pretend that we do, and we just can't. And you mentioned that you did Bufo, and you've had that ego death, right? And you can't explain it. And you said that in your book. A lot of these, if you can explain it, that's the ego. And I've never really thought about that until you said it in your book. And I was like, that's exactly right. And Bufo, you can't explain it. Like, when you go there, nobody can explain it. And it's like, for like that experience of an ego death, when you just dissolve into nothing, is terrifying. And it also, for me, it was such an important part of understanding that there's something bigger that I can't understand and I'm not supposed to hear, because the game would end. That's kind of what I feel. I don't know if that's right or not. It doesn't matter. But we're not supposed to remember, and it doesn't matter. We're here to just learn. Like you said, we got bored up there, and whatever you want to call it was like, yeah, you guys are fucking bored here. Let's cause a little pain and suffering and all this horrible shit, disease, and let's see what we can do to have fun. And we're here, and what I feel that I'm trying to understand is, like, infinity is my soul. I've never understood my soul until the last, and still about working with Bufo. That's when the first time I really realized that I had a soul, because you understand the mind, you understand the body, but in spiritual context and religion, you hear the spirit and the soul. And so for me, I've never really understood that until just recently, and I'm trying to integrate the soul aspect of the human experience. Can I live through my soul in this 3D reality? And that's what I'm working through. Like, I'm trying to understand with just being present and meditating, doing psychedelics, being able to understand the correlation of mind, body, spirit, or soul, body, spirit, and how to integrate the soul with the ego, and have a mature ego where the ego is not. I look at it like a neutral thing. It's not good or bad. It's just there, like it's part of the experience. We'll always have an ego until we die, and it's there to help us learn, to press us, to make us understand and see it, and not see it but hear it and acknowledge it. And can we use it with the heart, with the soul? It's kind of, when I say soul, I think it's the heart is like kind of where I feel like that the soul, when I say that. But I just thought I should share that with you. It's kind of, I don't even know what that means, but I feel like I'm just so curious about the soul aspect and trying to comprehend that and understand that I can't. There's not, like, it's something that I can feel in a sense that it's there, it's guiding me. It's kind of like the analogy of, the devil's the ego and then the angel's like the soul. It's kind of the way I look at it. I don't know if that's right or not. But can I live more of a Christ-like? Can I live from the soul? Can I live in this body? What can I do from that place of being? I believe that the soul is part of source. We're all part of source. Can I remember? And that's the message I keep getting is remember who you are. Is when I do these psychedelics, remember who you are. And I'm like, who am I? Who am I on a soul level? Is that possible here on earth? That's kind of what I'm learning. I don't know what's going to come out of it. I have no idea. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, two things like everything that we discuss. I agree because I've heard you say it. I've thought it. All the great teachers talked about it. We're supposed to remember who we are, right? Why? We purposely came here to forget. We purposely were given a very thick veil to forget who we are so we could experience this physical realm. Again, we're talking about how we want to remember who we are to get back to where we left our purpose, right?
Well, no,
Go ahead.
not for me. So I feel like we should remember, like what's feeling for me is we should remember who we are so we can experience that and hear it in 3D. I have no desire to go back. That's the thing I've learned. That's never been a thing. But what if we could bring and remember who we are and then become Christ-like? What if, like, and this is going to sound insane, but like, I've been so humble in a sense, but what if we could be Jesus? What if all of us could be? And I say that and I'm like, I'm probably gonna get judged and like, what if, like, and I've always, like, this is just recent, like last couple of months since I've been here and I've been really be able to just calm. I'm like, what if that is the Christ consciousness is us remembering our power here in 3D? Could we, like that's it. That's the remembering. Like, what if we could remember the energy, their essence, what would that do to the planet if there's thousands of Jesuses coming, walking on earth, performing miracles or just teaching or whatever you want to call it? Is that what Jesus was? Is that just what did he just remember? Like he was like, oh my God, I am this powerful. Holy shit, I am God. I'm part of the source. And that's like, at least for me, like I've never wanted to go back or anything. I've just had this knowing that that's not the goal for me. Like I don't need that. But what if that makes sense? I don't know if it did.
No, that makes that makes perfect sense. I mean, that's his teaching, right? When you break away the Bible and you break away the human aspect of kind of complicating his teachings and his message, that's it. You can be who I am. You're as powerful as I am. Like all of those teachings are basically pointing to us, even though certain churches and individuals have taken it and said they're, and kind of ruined it in a sense. But for those who are waking up, clear about it, it does make perfect sense. And that's kind of the gist I get from his teachings and listening to intelligent people talk about it. My own intuition, I completely understand it. For some reason there's a part of me that says, yeah, we're here to remember who we are and to live that Christ-like presence here in this physical realm. But we had that, and then we came here to forget and have this physical body to force upon ourselves limitations. For some reason, in my mind, it comes to like when I used to bet on stuff for like $10 for a game, or I'd go to Vegas and put $20 in a slot machine or do $100 in roulette. If I was a billionaire and I put $10 on red, who cares? I would need to put $100 million on red to make something in me be like, ooh, God, I don't know if I want to lose this, right? Because apparently up there, we manifest, we just think what we want, we get it. We had that. We came here. to not have that ability, to have the limitations, to be forced upon ourselves not to be able to do that. So in Vegas, or it got to the point where I needed to put $1,000 on red, where it kind of made me nervous to see black come up. So if we come here, and you said it earlier in the podcast, if we knew what was going to happen, or we didn't have those certain fears or those certain limitations, why even come here? Because we had that in that other realm, the higher realm, the heaven, the whatever it is, the place that people go in near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences. The peace, the unconditional love, the peace, the bliss, I feel like I'm home, I don't want to leave. So for some reason, and that's, again, it's not a right or a wrong, it's both. So every time I hear someone say something really confidently, I always say, and. So yeah, we're supposed to live the Christ-like being here on this physical realm. And I don't want an answer for that. I don't know what the answer is. We all have certain constructs and conditioning. The spiritual path gives you and I and others a new condition, a new construct to go off, a new teaching to think is better than what we left behind. But you and I are starting to find out that even when we start to feel good about what we know, it could take a week, it could take a month, it could take a year. We're like, shit, that's not it either.
Right.
That's not it either. So I'm in agreement with whatever someone says to me. I know that sounds weird, but when someone says, this is what I feel, this is what I saw, this is what I experienced. Yes. Yes. At first grade, you started to learn 2 + 2. And then in 7th grade, you learned algebra. And then in high school, you learned trigonometry. And then you got into a PhD level course and tried to figure out mathematics applied to the universe. All levels of those were math. It's just a different understanding. And then once you get past that, you're like, okay, and what's next? Like you said 20 minutes ago, you're trying to lose the ego, but then there's always something in you that's like, okay, what's next? Okay, I'm not the breathwork guy anymore. What am I going to do with my time? Oh, I'm going to be a husband. I'm going to be more present. I'm going to be more present with my daughter. I'm going to be more present in the stuff I don't like. Okay, that's what I'm trying to do too. Like when I hug Nicole, instead of having my mind wander or Nicole, grabbing her ass, I hug her now, and I'm saying to myself, let this woman feel love, peace, and stability. Because I used to I didn't take it for granted, but my mind would wander. It would go to a sexual place or something. And now when I hug her, I really sit into that present, like you said, the presence, and say, I just continuously feel that energy and say, let this woman feel love, peace, and stability. Because that's all she wants. That's all she wants. That's all she's ever wanted as a kid that she never got. As much as I wanted truth and to be the best at meditation, and all I care about right now is taking care of her and her boys. I couldn't give a shit about anything else. And maybe at some point, maybe that's the end all be all. But I don't know. But like you said, the presence, just being in that moment when I'm training someone or helping someone or being on a podcast, like I completely agree with you. I want to be like you talk about. I just want to be in that moment where my mind's not thinking about, shit, I shouldn't have let that kid take that PK. we still won the game, but I'm thinking, God damn it, how stupid was I? But man, that's that exhausting side of being a human that apparently I chose. So I got to keep remembering that I chose this. I chose that person. I chose you. I chose the fears, the worries, the insecurities, the parents. I chose it all because there was something in me that needed to experience it, learn it, and then, like the hammer building the house, let it go.
Now what?
Exactly.
You've been on this. So how long have you been on this path? How many years?
So in this life, about 12.
Okay.
But once you understand, when you say that, you're like, oh, I've been on this path for many lifetimes. Just like you, because you see the vast majority of this world who pray but don't meditate, because meditation's the devil. You have billions of Muslims, billions of Catholics, billions of atheists, millions of Mormons that all have one specific way of truth and understanding, right? And they would never meditate, or psychedelics are terrifying to them, or they would never leave their religion to expand, which is perfectly fine. So if you are already doing what you're doing, letting things go, apparently this is not the first lifetime that you have known this, because you've had an easy time with psychedelics, easy time with meditation, breathwork. It took a couple of years for you to understand it, but it was quick. It wasn't lifetimes, right? So I'm going to have to assume that I've been doing this many lifetimes, because when my teacher started talking to me about stuff I had never heard in my life, but I understood it. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a 3-year-old who can play Beethoven. Was his parents training him at 1 and 2 years old to learn? No, he just came into this life with a past life experience, and all of a sudden he's 3 years old on YouTube with 20 million views because he can rip out Chopin or Beethoven or whatever. So in this life, you already had that in you to go through these experiences. I had that knowledge, that clarity in me to have a very enlightened individual talk to me, have me read books, and me say, why does this make sense? I've never heard this. I was never religious. I never went to church. I never was taught about God, but he's talking about really high level stuff, and I understand it. So I assume I've been doing this for many lifetimes, and this lifetime seems like a very shortened time span of letting it go, letting the spirituality go. Yeah.
So you can't tell me anymore. You don't know anymore. Come on, man.
Well, the thing that's been coming to my mind as we've gone back and forth, because you kind of sidestepped it, and you may want to still sidestep it.
What's that?
But I've had a lot of people who, in whether they bring it up directly or just in passing or joking, kind of like a dad on the soccer team. A lot of people talk about their mom. And you brought it up. Is that something you would like to expand on, or no, you just want to let it go?
Oh, no, I can. In what way? What would you like me to discuss?
Just because I've experienced it. Nicole's experienced it. It still impacts us in a sense. I think a lot of people have struggles there. So I think it'd be cool to have you talk about that. How the pain you've gone through, how you experienced things, what she thought she experienced, the conflict between it. Just what did you experience? Because you said you needed to forgive her, etc.
Yeah. My mom. First, I grew up Mormon. I was out of 5 kids. I was right in the middle, black sheep. And at a young age, it didn't make sense to me. Like, the religion has never made sense to me. And I'd question it, and it really pissed off my parents because I'd ask really like questions at like 11, 12 about that religion, and they just would give me some really dumb questions. I mean, some dumb answers, and I just would be like, it just didn't make sense to me. So I struggled that way. I'm just giving you some like pretense of, and I was a little shit. I always pestered everybody, and I just never felt like I was part of that family, which is, I really want to kind of go into that Akashic Records and kind of see what's going on with that. But
you should, you'd love that.
Yeah, it's finally calling me. So I'm kind of yeah, I'm really excited about that. But yeah, in our religion, not my religion anymore, but Mormonism, for people that don't know that, you're supposed to go on a mission at 19. and I was a good kid, uh, but I wasn't going on it. Like I stopped going to church at 14, and my parents, my dad tried to manipulate me at church one day, and it's like, well, you have the priesthood, and if you don't want to go back to church, you don't have to. I said, okay, bye, and I never went back. And my mom didn't talk to him for like 2 months. He was pissed, and I never went back. But I was still a Mormon. I was still a good kid. I still, still a mentality. And but at 19, I wasn't going on a mission, and I got disowned. I got a restraining order on me, and I was kicked out of the house. And that is when I that's that's when I was suicidal, and drugs saved my life, and sex saved my life. And I never forgave the church or my mother for doing that, because that's
You
what
don't, you don't hear
that's
that every day.
yeah. And
Drugs saved my life.
it
Wow.
did. It took me a long time. It was actually somebody that mentioned it. I was telling the story many years ago. She's like, "No, that saved your life." I was like, "You're absolutely right," because I was trying to kill myself at the time, and I just kept. I should be dead. I should be dead, and I'm not. And but yeah, and so when I started doing breath work, that's when it really started coming out. That was like my first session with breath work. I remembered that trauma and realized that was, I had forgotten about it. 20 years, 22, like almost 22 years later, I just realized, like, oh my God, I've been doing all of these things to get away from the pain I was suffering as a 19-year-old, being disowned, um, being confused, you know. And when I come to terms with that, like I said, the breath work, like just to meditate, being able to get that clarity, like, oh my God, this is why I'm doing this. This is the pain I'm suffering. It's because of my mother, because of the church. I was able to just kind of face that. And so I went through like some forgiveness. I went and talked to her, and I let her know. I looked at my mother, and I really do think there's something really powerful about confronting, because she did the best she could. And it's not her fault. She had a lot of abuse, a lot of things she told me later in her life that's like, oh my God, part of my sexual stuff that I went, like, just, and understanding that. And I thought, I approached her one day, and I just said, like, she didn't know. And I said, dude, I tried to kill myself because of you. And I had to face her and say that. So she, like, I wanted her to feel it, and she had no idea. And I thought that was part of it. That made me feel a lot better. That was part of my, like, trying to make peace. And and I also, over the years, I've also looked at it like, what a blessing. Like, I wouldn't be who I am without that. Like, she created that, and like understanding that, and psychedelics helped me see that. It helped me see that, like, oh, I was never able to see, like, I love who I am now. I have so much love for myself. Like, if it wasn't for the church, if it wasn't for my mom, I wouldn't have this life experience of me talking to you right now. And that, like, I would never change. I would never change that experience. But it took me that long. It took me years and years to finally get to that point of, like, oh, seeing, like, blown that up to see it now, like, what a blessing. And I'm just so grateful for that experience. And so I thought I had forgiven her, and then I went and did a ayahuasca journey, and that wasn't even part of, like, that wasn't my intention going into that. But then I went into the back room where, like, there's most of the time there's a place where you can go outside where I'm the kind of guy that needs to be alone. I don't want to hear music. I just need to be alone so I can be in my thoughts when I'm tripping. And it was me being alone in this dark room where it was just like, you need to understand and respect your mother. It like it was like, and I said, I don't know if this is real or not, but, like, I felt like there was a soul contract with my mother and I, and that she did these things knowingly in the spirit world. And like I said, I don't know if that's true, but that's what it felt like. And that I needed to respect her, understand what she had gone through, and the amount of sacrifices she did for me. And going through that and feeling it, like I still had subconscious things going in the background that I had not fully forgiven her, like unconditional love shit. And every time I had a little negative thought about her, I would just throw up and shit. And this happened for a while. And it just literally, my stomach was just, I was dry heaving. You know, it's just like every time, like I'm good. No, like this is a process I went through. And by the time I was done, I had purged all of those negative things, those in a subconscious mind of my mother, of like understanding and only having understanding for her. And I still don't have a good like that's not true. I don't have a normal relationship. I don't even know what that means with your parents or anything like that, but I accept her for who she is. I don't need to save her. She's played her part perfectly. And that's what the whole that experience was like. She's playing her part perfectly. I don't need to save her with breath. I don't need to give her some mushrooms. Like for the longest time, like God, just take some mushrooms, man, and just just go through. Like I don't need to do anything. It's perfect. Everything was perfect. She played her part perfectly. And then that's what sealed the deal with. And I just have my love. I don't. She's never going to change. She's so LDS. She's doing her thing. It's perfect. And I have that just understanding, and that's like letting that go, understanding. That's the biggest lesson in my life is forgiveness for the church, for my mother, and understanding and unconditional love, and understand that I'm complete with that part of that. So, anyways, that help? Or that
Yeah, no, that's perfect. First, let's get you with Candace. I changed her name in the book to Charlotte, but her name's Candace. She's been doing it long enough where they're actually doing a study to bring more legitimacy to what this is. So I'll send you a link so you can get set up. That'll give you preferential placement. Because yes, there are soul contracts. Nicole and I have a soul contract. You and I have some type of contract. Like we always think there's like some, like, oh, it just so happens you're from Utah and you knew my buddy, and oh, we're on a podcast. No. Okay. the infinite amount of things that had to come together for you and I to be sitting here are something our mind can't wrap around. So there's just a process there. Secondly, like you said, she played her part perfectly. And that's one thing that I really loved about Ram Dass and his teacher, because Ram Dass met his teacher and was spending a few months in India and saw all the poverty. And he had seen his teacher do things that he knew science couldn't explain. So he knew how powerful he was. And one day he looked at his teacher and said, "We've got to do something about this poverty. I know you can do something about this. I know what you can do. I know how powerful you are. You need to do something." His teacher looked at him with just this immense love and said, "Oh, Ram Dass, can't you see it's just perfect?" Now, for many years, Ram Dass hated that. It pissed him off. It almost pulled him away from his teacher because he thought his teacher was being flippant about the pain and suffering. And then as he expanded, he understood what his teacher meant. Just like you did with your mom. Now, his teacher was at a level that very few people will experience, including probably you and I. So we're still living in this realm where, yeah, we've forgiven. Yeah, your mom played her perfect, but it's still a problem in a sense. Like if we think about it, we feel that emotion come up. That's, at least that's for me, speaking from direct experience. I know there's certain things I've let go, but if I hear that person's voice, I hear their name, something that triggers me, I still feel it. I still feel it. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say with that, that's for my experience. That was it. Like I hated my mom so much. If I heard her voice, I'd throw up. I want her dead. I hated her. And hate is like, a lot of people have never experienced that emotion.
Like legit hate. Yeah. Yeah.
I have.
Yeah.
It's a horrible, horrible place to be.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's horrible. And so I understand. And I, like I said, if you're still feeling those emotions, then you haven't let it go.
Yeah.
And that when you do, when the time is, whenever is your time to let that go, whenever that is, if that's ever a thing, that's how you know. And I just, anybody that's watching this, like, you've let it go or you've forgiven when there's no more charge to any of it. You can tell your story without having any emotions. You can look and sit and listen and without any charge or any emotions. And that's when you know that you've let it go. And it's
so yes, that's, the experience I have that I talk about in the book is my watch. I didn't have a lot of money growing up. So as soon as I got my first really nice watch, a Rolex, it could be 12 o'clock at night. We need milk and I need to go to a gas station that's almost about to close and no one's going to be there. Guess what I'm putting on? I get a holy shirt, flip flops. My hair's a mess. I look like dog shit, look like I'm homeless, but I'm putting that fucking Rolex on. Just in case I see someone I know accidentally at that gas station. Like, how childish is that? That's who I was in those years. That was very important to me. And I used to tell people, man, I don't care. I'd always scratch my head with my left hand because that's where my watch was. I'd roll my sleeve up, right? And I'd always say, oh, it's just materialism. I don't really care. Uh-huh. Okay. When I knew I didn't give a shit is when I gave that watch away, and I haven't worn a watch since, and it's been 7 years. I didn't give it away lying to myself, and then I bought something a year later, like an Apple Watch or at least something. I have not worn a piece of jewelry for 6 or 7 years. Like, to your example, to your perfect example. That's when I knew I finally did not give a shit because it doesn't cross my mind. I don't have to force myself or suppress myself to say, don't go buy another watch. I couldn't give a shit less. I felt so naked if I didn't have that watch on or I didn't have that car. But as soon as I gave that watch away to a friend of mine and I don't even think about it, like you said, then you know you're over it. If you've got to continuously tell people you don't care, you care.
right.
I don't care what my mom does. Why are you telling me that? I just asked you what you wanted to eat for dinner. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, yeah, that's a great example. If you can talk about it or it doesn't even cross your mind, or if someone brings it up, you're like, yeah, it happened. So what? That's when you know. And it reminds me of one of the greatest things, probably the most powerful things I've ever heard from a teacher by the name of Adyashanti. He is one of the, have you ever heard of him?
Mm-hmm.
Very kind individual. Incredible teacher. Was Zen Buddhist, backed away from Zen after he realized this was bigger than Zen. He always had people say, when can I know that my gut's 100%? When can I trust my intuition? What do I need to do to let go of something? Blah, blah, blah. Like, just on and on and on. And he was so gentle with them and so kind. He probably answered those same questions hundreds of thousands of times in his books, in his YouTubes, in his teachings, wherever he was. Which leads to a lot of things we talked about here. He said, you will let go when you let go. Not a second sooner and not a second too late. You can meditate till the cows come home. You can do psychedelics 100 times over, 125 to be specific. I think this kid did 125 ayahuasca sessions. Yeah, exactly. You can do retreat after retreat. You can have a teacher. You can have the highest level individuals. You can have the highest knowledge. You may let go tomorrow, or you may take lifetimes. So it comes back to my question of and, or my statement of and, or my question of why are we doing all this spiritual shit when someone can meditate for a week and have the best experience in the world and let go, when someone else can meditate for 40 years and still be in complete agony? Which comes back to the spiritual path is just another experience. It's just another distraction. It was my next identity that I needed because I had left such a powerful identity left, and I needed something in this realm, in this human, in this ego. I couldn't just sit in that void like you talk about. So I needed something else, and it became spirituality, which that's what tens, if not hundreds of millions of people are doing right now, which I'm not saying is wrong, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, because I needed it. I needed that mantra to meditate. I needed that teacher. I needed that book. I needed that psychedelic. I needed that hypnosis. I needed all of it. All of the stuff I talk about in my book that didn't help me. But in the moment, I thought I needed it. Spirituality is a great tool in the linear time that we understand the construct of in this human realm. But just like Adi Ashanti said, you will let go when you let go. Just like a 15-year-old turning 16. He didn't elaborate on that conversation or that statement. That's it. You could do all the breath work. You could try and save the world through Pay It Forward. You could do a podcast and hope to God millions of people get it. You could start coaching. You could teach. You could write a book. You could do energy healings with very powerful people. Enough, as I always put it, to kill a small elephant. And you could still be sitting here today wondering when you're finally going to let go. Now, everyone in the human realm thinks that's pessimistic and that why should I do this? Again, truth has no sides. I'm not coming from a you should or should not do this. I'm coming from all I know, my direct experience, my ability, which is one of my few talents, to connect the dots of all of these teachings, all of these teachers, all of these experiences, to listen to you, to listen to someone who is a Republican or a Democrat or a Catholic, connect all those dots and to just pour it all out for you to pick and choose how you want of what you think the next tool should be for your journey to move you closer to when you're going to let go. But if I'm looking back from my experience, it was a necessity in the moment, but did it really help me let go? Probably not. Because there is some point in my lifetime, in my existence, in my soul's journey, I will let go. Maybe I already have, and there's just this residue of my ego finally truly not understanding. But I did so many modalities, meditated so much, so many psychedelics, so many hypnosis, so many teachers. I gave my power away time and 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 time again, thinking someone else had the answer, someone else knew something I didn't, to finally say, holy fuck, I'm done. I'm done. You will let go when you let go.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot.
He was so gentle. He was so direct. And a great teacher said, you see another man from your level of consciousness. When a saint sees a pickpocket, when a pickpocket sees a saint, all he sees are his pockets. So when I listened to my teacher, when I listened to Adi Ashanti, when I listened to a Jesus teaching, Buddha, I was learning and understanding what they were saying at my lower level of consciousness. As my teacher helped me, as I expanded, as my clarity, my nervous system strengthened, I started to see teachings. They said the same thing, and I understood it at a deeper level. Again, like a 15-year-old turning 16. It just naturally came about. People who weren't spiritual, all of a sudden next week they want to meditate. Why? Because 10 million more people told them to meditate, or they saw more YouTube videos? Why'd they see that YouTube video in the first place? Why were they attracted to that YouTube video when they weren't a week before? Again, it comes back to the simplicity, which people hate. Because I always say it. Why does a 15-year-old turn 16? Why do you want to meditate? Why did you go down and do psychedelics? There's just this natural progression, this thing.
Yes.
Where do our thoughts come from? There's thing behind our eyes, this awareness that allows you to hear, to taste, to see, to smell. We had nothing to do with that. It was just given to us to experience, for me to be in this physical form, to talk to you right now. You will let go when you let go. I don't know when that is. But there are tools along the way that can give you, I guess, some relief or some distraction to make you feel like you're making progress along that way. And it's needed.
Yeah.
If I didn't have meditation, if I didn't have my teacher, kind of like you, I wouldn't be here. I know I wouldn't be here. I would have checked out. I would have checked out. Guaranteed. And I think that's more common than people would like to admit. Because if you want to admit, like you said earlier in this podcast, like I was suicidal, like if you admit it, it's real, and then maybe you'll do it. No. I think it's a necessity sometimes for people to just admit the thoughts in your head, to not suppress them.
Right. 100%.
Because just like that Adi Shanti also said that if what's in our head was broadcast out for everyone to hear, we'd never leave the house.
That is true.
Never leave the house. Well, I appreciate you sharing that about your mom and that part of the journey, because that's, again, I think this has been my most favorite episode. I really cannot wait to get this out and let people just see the rawness of this story. It's awesome.
Well, thank you. It was a pleasure. Yeah, I feel there's so many things I want to ask you.
Well, let's just keep going, because if the people want to quit at an hour and 47 minutes, then they'll quit. That's fine.
Yeah, I was gonna try to hold on. Let me get back to I had something I want to share. Unlearning. Along this last 7 years, because that's basically how long since I discovered, like, it's almost like BC and AD, kind of a thing. Like, it's like breath work, and then like before breath work, and then after breath work, and then now I've got to say something else, but we have to unlearn everything almost everything that's been taught to us, because most of it's been wrong. And I know that for me, that has been a huge thing, is just unlearning. It's really hard to unlearn all the programming that's from parents, from religion, from society, like everything you've been saying about, non-dualistic, thought, like that's tough, being in this physical form. And I know that, so I just want to bring that up. Like we have to unlearn, and that is very, very, very difficult to do. I don't know why I had to share that, but that's been
that's part of it. That's part of, like, that's another construct that is part of this path, is the unlearning, right? Because while we're unlearning, we're learning something new, which is part of this process as well. We the religion I left behind, I can't believe I used to believe that. Now I'm spiritual. If I hear another motherfucker tell me I'm not religious, I'm spiritual,
I've said that.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. So have I, right? It's all of non-dualistic teachings. Like, that's why I loved Adi Shanti. Yes, he taught Zen because his teacher was Zen, because it was a construct that helped a lot of people. He talked about non-duality, but if you really listen to him and he really dug in, he'd let that go as well. Like he looked at his teacher one time and said, "This is bigger than Zen, isn't it?" She said, "Yes." And he just walked away. So this unlearning, another construct. All the stuff I learned in those books that very few people read because my teacher was teaching me, part of the process. Because yes, I was unlearning the old ways that were in the moment now wrong, but I was being stuffed full of new knowledge, new learning. So how is that an unlearning? But just like fifth grade is necessary to get to junior high and high school, you can't skip. That's part of it. Work just like me, as much as you seem like the same way. We want to speed this process up. We want to continuously, how do I skip that step? I want to, like the thing everyone talks about now, life hacks. Everyone on YouTube. This is how you learn a language quicker. This is how you speed up the enlightenment process. This is my life hack. Shut the fuck up. Stop. There's like, no, you can't, there's no life hack to skip fifth grade. There's no life hack to skip all of junior high and go to high school. So yeah, there's an unlearning. It's a letting go. And I think the unlearning really kicks in at this point where we finally say, I haven't got a clue.
Yeah.
Like the construct of who Jesus was or who Buddha was or what a religion was or what spirituality was or what meditation does for us or what that teacher tries, or thinking awakening's the top of the mountain or enlightenment is it, and then we're good, and then we can go off and just fall back into the absolute. We don't need to do this anymore. That is a construct. That is a teaching. That blows me away how many very high level teachers still fall into a box and a construct and get upset when people around them go elsewhere. Jesus and Catholicism is a construct a lot of people need. The construct I needed was my teacher and telling me that this meditation and this guide that he was taught from was the only way. And if I went outside that, I was ruining or abusing the teaching. But he had a problem with like not him. Other people had a problem with different teachings. But my teaching's the way. Don't fall for this other shit. Fall for my stuff. Okay. Oh, okay. That's fine. So yeah, it's an unlearning, but I think the unlearning really kicks in when we stop trying to force something into our mind, stop watching YouTube, stop watching teaching, stop trying to learn, stop trying to meditate, stop trying to go to ayahuasca journeys, stop trying to go to attend it. Because the new thing now I've heard is the dark retreats, 3 days of darkness.
I was actually thinking about like, dude, there actually is one here in the town that I'm at. I'm like, that could be interesting. I've never done a 3-day.
And you should go do it. I'm not saying, like this whole discussion is not about it being wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Have you
Knock
done
it
that?
out. See? No. No, thank you. No. And the only reason I say that is because
you've done a lot of shit.
I've done a lot of shit, and it's always led to the same conclusion. So again, me continuously giving my power away to some other facilitator, to some other teacher, to some psychedelic, to some retreat, to some hypnosis, to some this, to keep meditating to this frequency. I'm continuously looking outside myself for something or someone else to have what I want, to give me the answer, and it's finally going to click. Nicole has told me this for years to stop doing that, and I don't listen. It's finally clicked in the last probably 6 months. After writing the book and rereading it to prove it and saying, my God, how stupid can I be? Because I kept writing the chapters and it would lead, as you're going through the book, all it led was to the next thing. It didn't lead to a breakthrough or like something. It led to me to the next modality. Oh, this is it. Oh, this guy knows. He's got a really high level clientele. This guy knows. That other hypnosis was an idiot. This guy's going to fix it. Like time and time and time and time and time again, I kept giving my power away. I can't do it anymore. As scary as it is, I'm standing on my own 2 feet trying to figure this out. Terrifying. because
Well, yeah.
we've lost.
Oh, go ahead.
I've personally lost that ignorant confidence.
Mm.
So sometimes, a lot of the time, nothing feels right because we don't have the structure that we used to that said, this is the box you fit into. And if you're in that box, it'll lead to this. If you work hard, it'll lead to this. If you do this, it'll lead to that. If you learn this, if you let this go. But when you remove that, the void, like you talked about, what am I standing on? Like if I get this gym going, okay, then what? I'd love to do that. What if my book sells a million copies? Cool. But I don't have the structure I used to have in the past where if I'd figure out how to market it or find some money for it or this or that. I don't know. So the only thing I know about, which I loved what you said, is it's 10 o'clock in the morning and I'm trying to be as present as I can be with this podcast and you. That's all I got. But my mind and my ego is thinking about tomorrow. I got to get crickets or the frog. I got to figure out how to be better as a coach. I got to get people in this gym. What else am I going to figure out? It just never ends.
No, love it.
Never ends. So what else you got, man? What else is going on in your head?
Something that a big win for me this last couple weeks. It's going on. The lesson of the years. There's many lessons, but I mentioned this earlier. The need. Like when you need things, it's kind of like it's. I kind of look at it. I think I heard somebody say it like this, but is God needy? Like it's the supreme source. He's needy, and if anything we do we need it? And when you say it like that, when I say it like that, it's like, oh. And I've just noticed that in my life, I've been getting rid of that need for things, and especially in the last like 10 months, of just dissolving my current identity where I need things. And a big one was that came up was my wife and I. We've been together for 15 years, from dating and marriage, and we've gone through a lot together. She's seen all the sides of me, and we've had our times. There's love. There's the love is there, but there's been, a couple weeks ago, she has lost respect for me because of my past. And there's just a thing she said that I called her out on it a couple weeks ago, and I said, you know what? This is not going to work, and I don't need you. And I said it with all the love and respect, and it felt so good to be able to liberating that I literally don't need her. And I was like, if I'm going to be with a woman, I want respect, and I understand where you come from because you've seen me my worst. But if you're not ready to let that go, then I'm ready to leave. And I know that we'll still be friends, and I know we'll still be great partners, and raising our kids. And it was out of love for myself and for her too. And it was so freeing of like letting go of needing anything, of really going back to how I want to be treated in a sense of a partnership that I've never. I've been needy my whole life. I haven't really noticed it until this last few years. It keeps on breaking down. It goes into a different level. Like you're like, oh, and then like this my relationship, and ever since then things have really started to she's like thought about that, and she's come to terms, and she knows. And last night we went on a date, and one of the reasons we came to Mexico was to redefine what love is, because we both of our parents are not in love, but we really don't know anybody that's a good role model for love. And love has been skewed, and my sex addiction and porn addiction has skewed that, and so we came here to redefine that. Like, what is that? Like, how do we want to now at this point of our lives, knowing each other and starting over? It's kind of how we look at it, because love's there. Like, it's absolutely, it's like so many things. Like, it is our evolution, I guess. I mean, we're no longer the same people that we got together with. And so we went on a date last night, and that's all we talked about for hours and hours, is like, what do we need? And that was really interesting, because there wasn't really that many things I need anymore, except, like, for me, is I want to be respected. I've learned that, if I'm going to be in a partnership. And that was really my only personal need. Everything else was like, I don't need anything. And it was so freeing. We both talked about that. And she's like, yeah, I've got to let some of the past go, because it's not like what I'm holding on to about you is stuff of that I'm afraid. I'm afraid of the past. And it was just so relieving and so great. And I hope that, we have this beautiful family. It's great, but just being able to just say that we don't need each other in that sense, and for both of us, and it's freeing. And I want to share that with whoever's watching this, that going through this is difficult. Going through an identity shift, which is what is going to happen if you go down this road. You're going to have to let go of your current identity, everything about it. You're going to lose some friends. You're going to lose some family. You're going to, like, your past wants, your hobbies, like, it starts to go, and you start creating something new, and it's scary, and you're like, what the fuck, dude? What do I do? I'm so bored. Like, I've been there too many times. I'm like, I'm so fucking bored. I just want to go back to getting fucked up every single day. That was so much fun. I have, and I'm just being honest with any of you guys. But that's not really what my soul wants. It's not. But my human side is like, God, I just want to get, God, 5 days of just being gone would be so fun. And anyways, but it's not really what I want. And just understand that you're sacrificing you for something better. Like, that is the ultimate, like, sacrifice. You're going to have to sacrifice the things that you like to have another experience. And I just can't say that enough. Like, it's worth it. Like, it's, with all the confusion and stuff, there's this feeling. And I don't know if that's, do you feel that too? Or is that just me? There's a feeling of power, and it is uncomfortable, and it's not just all rainbows and unicorns. Um, but if you go down this path, if this is your path, you're going to keep learning. It's going to feel good. And you're going to understand that the ups and downs are part of life. And yeah, anyways, what's your take on it, my friend?
Well, it took us a couple hours to get there, but that was one thing you talked about in our first discussion, the struggles between you and your wife, because it made me realize that the discussions I have with friends, when they talk about their significant others, I can't remember the last time someone was really adoring in their description of their partner. It's always about what drives them crazy, the struggles, the change, the kids, the dogs, what they don't like. But they always do it with a smile on their face, and actually, I don't want to get into that. The main thing is I can't remember the last time someone talked to me and said, man, I am just in love with my partner. And I get that, because what what she's had to endure as I've shifted, as I've gone through this process, and every one of my fears, worries, and insecurities have come up and been played out, and I did not have the ability anymore to lie, at least lie in a good way where people thought I was okay. Excuse me. She didn't deserve that. She doesn't deserve that. And she just, the respect thing, she rightfully so lost respect for a part of me. Rightfully so. Absolutely rightfully so. Because she has always been the person that said, I see so much more in you. Why can't you see that? Why can't you see that? She's talked about this, I mean, just for an example, she's talked about this podcast because of how I talk, how I am with people for probably 2 years. I just started 2 months ago. That is the most infuriating thing to her. Right? So this is a big deal, because who do we spend our most time with? Our significant other. And when they're continuously reminding you certain loss of respect, you could be better. I want you to be better. Why are you doing this? There's 2 ways to look at that. And unfortunately, most of us, including myself for the longest time, looked at that and said, stop bickering. Stop treating me like shit. Stop telling me what's wrong with me. Fuck you. What about you? What about your side? What about your weaknesses? And then finally, like I talked earlier in this podcast, her messages to me about that were like she was the most intelligent person on the planet. She didn't hesitate. She didn't say, she didn't pause. It came out like artificial intelligence. Word for word, perfect, direct, intelligent, smart, fierce, loving, angrily, with no hesitation and no need for editing. If that was put down on a piece of paper, there would no need for an editor. It was perfect. As soon as I finally realized that, everything changed. And I realized it wasn't her being mean or losing respect for me. It was me losing respect for myself, and she was just pointing it out. But imagine her having to be around me going through the worst of my times, sitting in the basement, hating my life, trying to lie to myself that what I was doing was okay. And she's very sensitive. She's very feeling based. So I could come up with a smile on my face and say, what's wrong? Nothing. She saw through all of that. And she had to spend a lot of time letting me be that way and trying to be the strength that she could for me. But that is very taxing. So the relationship part, with awakening or without her, the shift on this planet is causing decades worth of relationships to finally be honest with each other. And all the conversations I'm having, like I said, I can't remember the last time someone said, man, things are good. We're so in love, and I can't believe how lucky I am. I really can't remember the last time someone said that to me. Yeah. So you talking about having those liberating conversations, that's where a lot of people want to get to. And it takes time. But it takes admitting that from both sides of like, you drive me crazy, I drive you crazy. This is what I really, really think. So 2 things. You need to be able to talk to each other about that. But secondly, the person receiving needs to be okay and not get immediately defensive. And that took me quite a bit of time to just sit and listen and get my teeth kicked in and not have any ounce in me say, whoa, 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 whoa. But this is what I meant, but I'm trying to do this. I was working on that, and just sit back and take it. as tough as that is, it's really changed a lot of stuff. And she's changed significantly in her patience, in her finally seeing her own patterns as well. It's been a lot better, a lot better. And it's been the best thing for me because, she's my messenger. As much as I would love for it to come through different dimensional beings and a channel like Bashar or some alien to come down and tell me everything, or have a guardian angel to teach me the Wim Hof, I've had none of those experiences. And I've taken the highest level of psychedelics possible, come out of it and not learned or not experienced anything. I didn't feel anything. I didn't see anything, nothing. So,
hey, you had your dick.
Yeah. Spiritual dick. Yep. That's true. He's still in my life. But he's still alive, still talking to him, still going to lunch with him. He was part of the process. He was the one that led me down this path and changed, which I am eternally grateful for. But the stuff that really changes people, the truth, the raw truth of finally admitting where you're blind, that's a 5'6" blonde woman by the name of Nicole.
That's awesome.
So I love to hear the conversations you're having, because that's the most liberating thing, is to when I'm really stuck in my shit and she says something, it just crumbles me. When I'm good to go and I'm confident in myself and she says something, oh man, that's 100% right. I'm confident. I move on. We're better for it. Ongoing process, right?
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, you get to a point that you take full responsibility about your life, your emotions, and like with this is like a big part of like what do we want to envision what love is. And if anybody's watching this and having the same kind of thing, like you create that, and I'm hoping that we create this. It's going to take time because, like I said, like we went on a big old date last night and talked about this for hours and hours and realized like we don't really need that much anymore. Like but there's all programming. We've got to unlearn some things, and then like I'm no longer that person that she first met, and she's no longer that person when we first met, and so our needs have changed in the sense of, and they're not even needs anymore. They're more preferences of, you know what, I would like this from you, like, and I learned some things from her for just being honest last night. She learned a lot from me from just being open without judgment, just listening, of like, okay, what does love look like? And when we really got down to it, it's like this is going to be months, maybe years, to create that perfect whatever that is going to look like for us, and redefining. Because like I said, we don't have any role models for what that looks like, from intimacy to emotional to all of it. And so it's exciting. I'm excited for it to create that with my wife and my family, and really getting to the point, and hopefully everything works out. And if not, then it doesn't. We give it our best, and that's still what an experience. This is an experience, and like looking at it that way is just taking all the what ifs, the what if it doesn't, like I don't, like there's none of that anymore. It's just like let's create together what that looks like, and be open and honest and have fun, and yeah, so
I mean, what else is there?
I don't know.
What else? I mean, meaning not as in a direct question about this conversation, but what else is there after all you and I have experienced? It seems like we always come back down to where we started. The only thing I got left is to be a better man for her and her boys. And just, figure that out. Because I've tried to get to the top of the mountain, to be the best meditator, to be the best business guy, to be the best. It always comes back down to what you just said. Build something beautiful, better with your wife and kids. I've learned a lot of stuff. I know a lot of things. I know a lot of people, a lot of powerful stuff, teachings, and that's what I've ended up with. Out of all of that, letting all of that go, because it led me to the same place, in a sense of fear, despair, and wondering what's next, to finally starting the podcast and still wondering what to do next.
Yeah. What do I do? I have the same boat. I'm just take being with my family and living with integrity. And that's really hard because the ego is like, I need to be doing something. I've got to be making some money. I gotta be like, without breath work and psychedelics and what? And that's all right. And
It's all right.
That's new. That's the new experience that I'm going through right this moment. Is I don't know if I can help anybody right now. To tell you the truth, I don't know shit. So
you know what though? No, I think you'll probably help more people now than when you thought you were. Because I know that I went through a time where I thought I was helping everyone, and I'm sure, like I even talk about in the book, like I apologized to people for being so confident in what I was telling them to do. I'm sure it helped some. I'm sure it made some people worse. Then you go through that time of truly like ignoring text, ignoring phone calls, ignoring conversations, ignoring going out in public, ignoring talking to friends, because you don't want to talk to them because you don't want to possibly give them shitty advice.
That's literally where I'm at right now. I'm just like, I don't know shit. I don't like you said earlier, I don't know all your background. I don't know exactly everything that's gone in your life. I can't make a call right now. I wrote that resonates quite a bit.
The one thing I'm picking up on, though, is I know that we'll come back down to what you've talked about this entire podcast. If I'm training a little 11 or 13-year-old or 14-year-old here in the gym for training for soccer, I know I'm helping in that moment. That's it. If someone does ask me for advice, I'll just let it, I'll just naturally come up with something, whatever naturally comes out. These podcasts, how these discussions unfold, just that, like you said, that presence, just this natural. We go through a process of thinking we're not helping anyone. We go from a process of thinking we're saving everyone to not knowing, to thinking we're actually hurting people, to a happy medium. And that's what will be next. That happy medium of not even thinking about, am I helping or am I hindering? Just naturally saying what that person needs to hear. That's kind of what I'm starting to feel a little bit more of. I feel good when I'm training someone or coaching someone or doing this podcast. I know that doubt and that lack of confidence is slowly starting to wane. It feels good. So, like Ram Dass's teacher said, it's all just perfect.
Yeah, with that perfectness, that's been really hard for me over the years to look at it that way. And it's only been the last little while to where it's just like I'm starting to see, just because of the time. When you're here, you don't see it. Like like with my trauma. But now 20-something years later, it's like, oh, what a freaking awesome story. I love it. What a great experience. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, religion. Thank you, all the people that helped me, all the people that I screwed over and were mean to, and it's like take that part of my experience and knowing what that would feel like. It's beautiful, and everything's perfect. But that's really hard to comprehend when you're at the beginning of the journey, because that. But
yeah. Well, 2 hours and 22 minutes. I think we'll call it.
I think we're good. If you're complete, I'm complete.
That's a great time to end it. I think thank you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've really generally enjoyed this conversation and enjoyed your book. Just your book just resonates. You're funny. You're a really funny guy, man. I don't know if you're just naturally that way or just a writer that way, but you're a funny guy.
Well, I wanted to be a stand-up. Yeah, I wanted to be a stand-up comedian when I grew up. No, I'm just kidding. I have no clue. Thank you, truly, thank you for allowing me to talk about a lot of this stuff and shedding some tears and being honest, because that's this has felt really good. So thank you for being my therapist.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Marcus.
Yeah, thank you, Marcus. I tried to figure out how to do the live stream so he could watch live, but I'll just have to edit this up and then get it out to the world and get him a copy, because I think he'll really like this. So I appreciate Marcus for connecting this, and I can't wait to get this one out. So thank you, Jeremie. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.